Welcome to the Mother-Daughter Empower podcast, a show that provides moms with the tips, tools, and resources that they need to raise the next generation of empowered girls. I'm your host, Tara Filto. Now let's get started. Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Mother-Daughter Empower show. I am so excited. Our guest today, I have Jennifer Ramirez. And Jennifer is the founder of Women Rise Chicago. And I'm so excited to have you today because your journey is so inspirational. And I think we're going to dive right in. I'm going to ask you to talk a little bit more about yourself, your journey, and how Women Rise Chicago kind of came about.
Sure. So, hi everyone. I'm Jennifer Ramirez. I'm the founder and executive director of And Rise. It's called And Rise. I know it's a little confusing. The website is called Women Rise Chicago because there's none left, no websites left called And Rise.
Good to know.
So, yes. So I am a sexual abuse survivor. I was abused at the age of 7 by a close family member, and also I've been a single mom since pregnancy, since day one. Pretty much when I told him, he was out the door, and that was very hard in itself because he was my first love. He was, father of my kids, so I took it very hard, and I became very hard and angry after that. I lived in a really bad neighborhood in Chicago as well, because that's all I could afford. There was a drug war going on, shootings every day. I didn't feel comfortable, like even taking my daughter for a walk in her stroller down the street because I was scared that, somebody would shoot one of us or some guys would try to bother me walking down the street. And I was just in a really negative place for a long time. And I didn't really realize that I was doing a lot of things that were because of the trauma that I went through when I was younger. I didn't love myself. I had really low self-esteem, a lot of confidence issues, and I didn't really honestly put it together till like the last 2 years of my life, like really digging deep and stuff like that. And I feel like I was always also looking for love, always looking for someone to complete my family, right? Because society tells us you're not complete until you have the husband or until you have the father for your children. And that I believed that for such a long time, and it was a really big mistake because instead of doing things for myself and for my future, I was just looking for that person to complete me, or whatever, complete my family. And so it wasn't until I started going to therapy, and it wasn't until I started reading self-help books and really like learning about myself, doing things that I like to do and bettering myself, that I really started learning a lot about myself and the type of person that I was, the type of person that I wanted to be, and stuff like that. So that really, really changed a lot of things. And I was $25,000 in credit card debt at one point in my life when my daughter was small, because I was only on one income, wasn't receiving child support, and I was, on my own. So I was paying rent and bills and everything. And by the time everything was paid, I had like nothing left for, it was some weeks I had to decide, am I getting to work this week because I need gas, or am I not buying groceries, or am I buying groceries? It was really tough. I had to make those types of decisions. And I think because of that struggle, like it really empowered me to want to do better. Cause I was like, this cannot be like what life is about, and this is not what I want my daughter to grow up thinking is normal, like the poverty and the negativity and all that stuff. And I also hung around a lot of negative people who just kept feeding into the negativity, and I thought it was all normal and stuff, and it really wasn't, and it held me back for many, many years. So like I said, once I started also going back to college when my daughter was 7 years old. She is now 14. I just graduated with my bachelor's degree in May of 2020. So
Congratulations. That's
yeah, it
awesome.
took a long time. I went part-time because I was working full-time single mom, and going to school part-time, after work. So, and it was rough. It was really hard, but I am so happy I did it. It was a huge accomplishment. And it also showed my daughter um, hard work. She saw me struggle. She saw me cry. She saw me stressed, and that was also a lesson to her. Go to school when you're supposed to. When you graduate high school, go do it. Don't wait. I always told her, don't wait till you have kids. It's so hard. And look, like I'm not able to spend all the time I want to spend with you because now I have to hit the books. And, so do it right when you're supposed to, so that was kind of like her lesson. I think she did learn. I'm hoping that she did see my struggle and all that. So anyway, so that was kind of like all the downfalls. And then I started, like I said, going back to school. That really changed a lot of like my mind set and the way I thought about the world. College really helps you just see the world in a different way. So I started learning more about money, teaching myself about how to invest your money, how to get out of debt and stuff like that. So I sacrificed a lot. I used all my income tax checks, any birthday money, any holiday money was towards debt, paid everything off. And then by the time I was 30 years old, I was 100% debt free out of that credit card debt. That
Wow.
was terrible because I felt like it
Oh,
was,
that's huge.
yeah, it was huge. So when that happened, then I had all this money left over. And I was like, what, oh my God, what am I going to do with all this extra money? So I just started saving it. I was like, I know I'm going to do something with it one day. I'll just save it. Then I started again, teaching myself about investing. Then I started learning about real estate and how to buy properties and, becoming a landlord and stuff like that. So I did that. And I had 3 properties altogether. I just sold my first property that I ever purchased. I sold it in February of 2020. And then that allowed me to quit my full-time job in March to pursue what I now call And Rise, is the nonprofit organization where we empower women to be the ultimate versions of themselves, no matter what adversities they've faced. So we offer personal and professional development workshops, women empowerment events, and we do weekly support groups for sexual and domestic abuse survivors. And our vision is to provide single moms who want to go back to school, to college, with financial assistance for tuition, supplies, and childcare, so that they don't have to worry about any of that stuff. They could just focus on school, because that was one of my struggles, was childcare. It's so expensive, as we all know, and I couldn't afford to pay somebody to watch my daughter. Not Well, I had to pay somebody to watch her while I was at work, and then I had to pay somebody to watch her while I was at school. So I was like, I couldn't do both. So I want to take that burden off of women who want to really, change their lives and go to school, by giving that to them, and also providing sexual and domestic abuse survivors with therapy and counseling for free, so that they could overcome those mental and emotional things that come with trauma, because like I said, I didn't realize a lot of the mistakes I made was attributed to the trauma that I went through when I was younger. And that's why I had a lot of issues and made a lot of bad mistakes. And I was in the same cycle, just vicious cycle, and I didn't really realize it till recently. So yeah, so that's And Rise. And that's my story, and kind of why I started And Rise, because I just want to help women, because I know what it's like to be a single mom. It is very, very hard. And it's not just hard financially, it's hard mentally and emotionally. It takes a toll on us that no one will ever understand unless they're in the situation themselves. Everybody says, I know it's hard, but they really don't understand the toll it takes on you. It's hard, and the thing I hear most is we feel alone. I feel like no one understands and alone. And I'm like, oh, yes, that's how I used to feel. So when I have women tell me that, it's just like, that's why I created this community of women that can come together and just talk, and just know that you're not alone, and that there are people out there that do understand your struggle, and that are struggling just like you are, And I think so a lot of the times we always feel like it's only us, right? We're the only ones going through these things. And then when we see that there's other people that understand our struggle, we're like, it brings such a relief to know that you're not alone. So that's why I created the nonprofit, and that's why I, bring women together to just talk about a lot of issues that we all deal with. We don't just deal with, single motherhood. We deal with postpartum depression, body image issues, eating disorders, domestic abuse. There's an array of things that we as women deal with, but we don't talk about, because I think we don't want to bombard each other with our problems, because we are the caretakers. We're the ones, we have to take care of everyone else, and that's what we've been taught since childhood. So yeah, so that's why I created it, and that's why I really am passionate about it, and I believe in it, because I think that women really need this, and I feel like even if they don't realize they need it, they need it.
Yes, I love that. Congratulations. That's absolutely amazing. I love how you really took kind of your life story and your journey, and it's just so powerful what came out of that and what you've created for other women and to support and help them. And I think it's so true what you mentioned. So often we feel like we're alone because what we're going through, perhaps there's nobody in our
Yeah.
internal circle that is going through that, but we're never alone. There's always so many others that are going through that. So I love that you've created an organization that brings people together and that offers that support. Would you highly recommend anyone that to reach out and look for other resources that are, beyond our family and friends when we're going through something.
Would I recommend other resources for them?
Yeah, no, I'm saying like it's would you recommend that moms reach out outside of their own
Oh
family
yeah,
and friends, yeah,
absolutely.
for support?
Yeah.
I think that's so important. And
They
I
have like single mom support groups and stuff like that. And I think I honestly, I remember when my daughter was very small, not even probably like 2 years old yet. And I was looking on the internet like for things for help for something. And there was nothing out there back then. My daughter's 14 now. So it's a lot of time has passed since then. But yeah, I remember thinking like there's nothing out there like to help women, like even with some advice or, anything. There is nothing.
yeah,
Now there's a lot more resources out there, but yeah, I really wish that I would have had that because I did feel alone. And another thing that I tell women is to ask for help. That is our
yeah,
biggest, I think, downfall, that we don't want to ask anyone for help. We don't, again, don't want to bombard other
think
people
we
with our
can do it
problems.
all, right?
Yes.
Always
And
think that we can do it all.
exactly. And I am a very proud person on top of it. I'm very proud. So I was like, no, I can do it myself. I'm doing it I just was
Yeah,
I'm very independent. So I don't like asking for help. But now that I'm a little older and a little wiser, I wish I would have just swallowed my pride and asked for help, because my life would have probably been 10 times easier if I would have just asked somebody for help. And I didn't. I just was like, I'm doing this on my own. I'm doing it on my own. But now that I'm, like I said, a little older, now I do ask for help, and you would be surprised at how willing people are to help you. Like they're like, oh yeah, absolutely no problem. And I'm like, wow, it's that easy.
yeah,
And that's something that I think we get too much in our heads, that we think, oh, if we ask, they're going to say no, but that's not necessarily true.
yeah. And
So
you won't
that,
know until you ask, right?
yeah,
That's what the problem is. I think so many times is it's all up in here, and we're like, oh, it's going to be too much. I don't want to have
hmm,
to ask, but just ask. The worst case scenario is they're going to say I
worst
can't.
case, they can say no. And what can that's the worst thing that can happen.
Exactly. But
Yeah.
it's, I always go back to that term, it takes a village. And so often, I know, with our generation, so often women are stuck without that village, but not to be shy to go out and find it, find our people, create
Yes,
our village is so important.
absolutely.
I love that you talked also about the cycle and how for a while you were kind of stuck in that cycle without realizing it. So, what is your advice to moms, and especially moms with daughters? What is the process that you went through, and how could you guide them, to break through that cycle? What are the first steps that you could take to do that?
So something that I told myself once I started on my like transformation journey, if you will, um, I used to tell myself, what have you done in the past? And did that work for you? Obviously not. So if you want to change, you have to make different choices. If
Yeah.
you keep making the same decisions, then the same outcome will be the result. So for example, I'll say I used to like Bad Boys. That was I used to like love that stuff. And I knew that it was not going to get me anywhere, because now it had made me a single mother because of my bad
Mhm.
boy fetish, as I like to call it. It got me nowhere in life. So I was like, if you want a good guy, you're going to have to make a different choice. You can't go with the bad boys. So the ones we call boring, right? That was the one that I needed, but I was like, oh, they're so boring. And now I think the boring is what you need. The boring is not even boring, but I convinced myself that it was boring at the
Yeah.
time. And now I'm like, it's exactly what I needed though. And had I done this a long time ago, so like just breaking those cycles. I think deep down we know what we're doing is not right, and that we're making a mistake, but we tend to overlook and just push that away. We tend not to. I always talk about too, like the little voice inside, whether you call it God or your intuition. If we don't follow that, it's there for a reason. And us women are blessed with that natural women intuition, and it's there to tell us and to guide us. And if we're ignoring it, we're going to go the opposite way, and not good outcomes will come from that. And that's when my life really started changing, because I stopped listening to that voice. I've always been very intuitive. I always listened, but once I stopped, my life just like spiraled out of control for a long time. And it wasn't until I started becoming conscious of it and listening that everything started to just like fall into place. Amazing things started happening. Like, so that's what my advice would be, would just be make better choices. If you know it feels wrong, don't do it. Follow that intuition, follow that voice. It is there for a reason. It's trying to guide you. in my opinion, it's guiding you to the light. And sometimes we don't want to go to the light because it takes a lot of work to get there, and it's scary. And you know what though? I mean, if you want to be successful and have a great life and be happy, it's worth the work. It's like I said, it took me a long time to figure it out. Don't spend 10 years like I did figuring it out. Figure it out now, or try to get it, just try to dig deep in yourself and figure out where it comes from too. Like, why don't you want the change? Why don't you want the change? Or what scares you about the work that you're going to have to put in for it,
Yes, there's a lot of questions, and it is a lot of self-work, but in the end, the results are just so worth it.
Life-changing. Absolutely life-changing. Yes.
Life-changing. Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing everything that you shared with us today. You really provide some great tips, and I think a lot of our members are going to, resonate with your story. What are your last words of wisdom, for the single moms that are listening and perhaps they're struggling? What is your advice and your last words of wisdom to share with them today?
To the single mamas, don't give up. You're not alone. And I know it's hard, and I just know I want to hug all single moms because I just know how hard it is and how alone you feel. But don't give up. Your kids are watching everything that you're doing. They're listening to everything you're saying. So make sure you're being, a good influence to them. Just keep working hard, strive for your passions. It's not easy, but it is definitely attainable. If you've been through trauma like I have, healing is possible. It is possible to overcome. And don't get stuck on your trauma, and don't, I guess, what's the word? Sorry. Don't dwell so much on the negative and feeling sorry for yourself, because you can really get stuck in that place of feeling bad for yourself. And then you think my life sucks. And then you just are always feeling, bad. And acknowledge that something bad happened and figure out how to move past it. How can I, whether that mean you go to support groups or therapy, in my opinion, helps a lot, which is why I want to provide that to women and through the nonprofit, because it helped me a lot. And it's changed my life. So that's why I think women should do that. Even if you're not even going through any type of trauma, just sometimes venting to somebody, a professional that knows how to help you, is just really, really helpful in itself. So yeah.
So many benefits to therapy. It's so true. And sometimes I think it sounds a little bit scary if you've never been to therapy before, but I think once you've gone through that first session, you'll see that it's really not as serious as we thought, right?
Yeah. And you can have a really cool therapist that is on your, I have one that she's so cool. It just feels like you're talking to a friend. It doesn't feel like therapy.
Yeah. And I think we could all benefit from that.
Yeah. I agree. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Jennifer, again for being with us today.
Thank you.
My last question, if you just want to share one last time, if our viewers want to reach you on social media, on your website, can you share that? And we'll link it as well here in the interview today.
Yeah. So the website is www.womenrisechicago.org. If you'd like to reach me directly, I'm at jennifer@womenrisechicago.org. You can also find us on Instagram and Facebook at Women Rise Chicago. And we're also on YouTube. I have YouTube videos out there for women, for single moms. We have finance for single moms, like Cash Flow 101 for single moms who are business owners. We have videos on, surviving trauma and things like that. I do interviews. So I have a lot of resources out there on the YouTube page, and it's awesome. And Rise is the name of the YouTube page. So I think that's it. And we're on Pinterest too. We're on Pinterest.
Perfect. So many great resources out there through your organization. So we'll be sure to link them as well. And thank you once again for being with us today, and
for having me.
Everything that you did.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
All right. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much for listening to today's show. Don't forget to sign up for our free monthly mother-daughter membership, which gives you instant access to our members-only Facebook group, monthly empowerment toolkit, and much more. Sign up today by visiting www.motherdaughterempower.ca. See you soon.